No pictures, please. No pictures, please. No pictures, please. No pictures, please.
It's been a while. What's up? My name is Rachel Zegler. Welcome back to my channel. I'm an actor. If you're new here, if you're not, I'm anyone you want me to be. I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid, but I'm Snow White and not Princess Jasmine. The internet is not my biggest fan. It never has been, but especially isn't these days. I've made some stupid choices, but I don't think anything to warrant the amount of negativity that I see on the daily.
As the backlash continued to pour on for months on end following the trending interview she did at D23.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
Pay your fucking writers, pay your fucking actors. I have residual checks that would shock you, and I've only made 2 movies.
I say, if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks.
Welcome back to my channel, where I mostly cover reality television stars and all the drama they seem to always find themselves in, from constant fighting to outrageous and highly racist remarks to battling alcohol dependency and even allegations of SA, all filmed for our entertainment. But sometimes real life can be a lot messier than make-believe reality, and in the case of Hollywood star Rachel Zegler, well, that's definitely the case. The bizarre and honestly fascinating rise of Zegler from a random high school student to a leading actress of major films is something that I and a lot of people have been mesmerized by, and not necessarily for good reasons. This once unknown American actress's short and extremely fast climb to fame was riddled with drama, controversy, and, well, multiple rounds of cancellations. During her 4-year career, Rachel Zegler seemingly managed to turn the entire internet against her, all the while bringing down a network giant that has been around since the 1930s, as well as basically dooming a remake of a beloved movie that honestly should have been a guaranteed hit. This is the story of Rachel Zegler and how arrogance, defiance, and lack of self-awareness can bring down a rising star. Part 1. Rise to Fame. Rachel Zegler was born on May 3, 2021 in New Jersey as the youngest of 2 children. Her father is of Polish descent and her mother is Colombian. From an early age, Rachel developed a love for the arts, which was sparked when her family introduced her to the exciting world of Broadway. She quickly became captivated by the intricate and enchanting productions like Beauty and the Beast. Rachel's acting career began at the age of 12 years old, with her first role being in a local production of Fiddler on the Roof, and her interest in performing would only grow from that point on. She followed the small role in this local play by appearing in multiple musicals during her time in high school, often landing the leading role in set productions. Her high school acting career included popular well-known shows such as playing Belle in Beauty and the Beast, Ariel in The Little Mermaid, and Princess Fiona in Shrek the Musical. Rachel's performances would receive recognition even at this early stage of her career, with her being nominated a total of 4 times for the High School Metro's Theatre Musical Award, being a clear and absolute favorite by the critics year after year. Rachel would build on this momentum by launching her own YouTube channel in 2015 at the age of 15 years old.
Hey everybody, welcome back. What was that? Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel Zegler. For anybody who's new here, highly doubt it though. Welcome!
Her channel, which is still active to this day, showcases videos and clips of Rachel's high school productions, as well as her singing covers of her favorite songs. One video in particular, where Rachel sings the song Shallow from A Star Is Born, would go viral, gaining over 3 million views, and for good reason. Her voice is breathtaking, and it's clear that her success thus far is well deserved. And while Rachel was gaining attention locally in her community and online through her YouTube channel, her big claim to fame came when a friend of hers sent her a link to an audition for a movie. Attached to this link was a message that read, "Thank me when you're famous." This Twitter link was for Steven Spielberg's upcoming remake of the popular musical West Side Story.
Friend McKenna sent it to me and said, "Thank me when you're famous," and I laughed ass off at that. But then I thought, I had just played the role on stage, maybe. I was 1 out of 30,000 people who auditioned for it, and I auditioned for a year.
Spielberg was looking for a young actress to play the role of 18-year-old Maria. In the film, the character of Maria is Puerto Rican and is based on Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. Out of a reportedly 30,000 applicants, Rachel Zegler's audition tape caught the director's eye, and after multiple rounds of interviews, she would land her first Hollywood role.
Hi, my name is Rachel Zegler. I am 16 years old and I'll be turning 17 on May 3rd, 2018. I'm a Northern New Jersey and New York City based actress. I've played Maria in West Side Story before, so I was beyond thrilled to receive your email, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to perform for you again via video submission. I have two things prepared for you guys today, which is what you sent me in the email. I'll be singing Somewhere from West Side Story.
The movie's release would be delayed due to the pandemic and would finally be released on November 29, 2021, to critical acclaim. This remake of the 1957 original was widely beloved and received positive feedback from both moviegoers as well as movie critics, even managing to be in the top 10 films of 2021, as per both the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute. However, Zegler's first major role wouldn't come without its own set of problems. First was the issue that the movie was a financial flop. Despite its positive reviews and it managing to gross a respectable $76 million worldwide, sadly this amount came shy of the estimated $300 million it needed to break even. This will be a common theme for Rachel's future movies, with her never really being featured in a financially successful one, which is arguably an important aspect of being an actor, but what do I know? Another theme that would haunt the production Zegler's was attached to was, of course, controversy. This time, Rachel would receive backlash for her casting in a role that technically didn't match her ethnic background. In a 2021 article published by the Daily Beast, author Mandy Velez wrote, quote, "Steven Spielberg cast actress Rachel Zegler to play the part of Maria. I can't deny it, she's incredibly talented. Unlike the original Maria Natalie Wood, she's Latina. But Zegler is not Puerto Rican, she's Polish and Colombian. As much as I want this to be enough for the remake to feel right, it just doesn't." Unquote.
It became a conversation about how many different ways there are to be of Latin descent. Do you speak the language? Does it matter? Do you eat the food? Does it matter? Where do you come from? And how do you feel about who you are? And are you comfortable in your identity?
And while Mandy and the few other articles I could find that commented on this issue approached this topic and their criticism of the casting delicately, online critics of this issue were far less gentle, even tagging the actress in a post where she appeared to edit her images to hide her Polish side, which prompted Rachel to respond publicly on her TikTok account in a manner that some viewed as a bit condescending and highly aggressive.
Honestly, I'm embarrassed of this because I chose a filter that made me look pink as hell. But you thought you did something. You thought you did something by pointing out that I, like every other person on planet Earth, use filters on my photos. But you know what you really got? Embarrassed. Let me tell you why this is embarrassing. It's because in this photo, I'm still an olive-toned queen. You don't have to give me any more racial identity confusion than I already have. Let me tell you something. Soy una Latina orgullosa. Y tengo muchos privilegios, porque tengo piel clara. But I will never try to bait people by pretending that I look different than I do. Shouldn't even have to explain myself, but go pick on someone else who's actually doing harm by race fishing.
Now, I see no issue with Rachel responding to criticism, obviously, and I even understand the need to defend yourself when the internet is coming for you. However, responding on your TikTok account as a now famous actress is kind of unheard of. And yes, I'm aware that Rachel went from being a high school student to basically famous overnight, and she probably and clearly isn't media trained, but it's just wild to me that she thought making a TikTok video was a good idea, instead of, I don't know, releasing a statement through her agent like every other actor out there. But anyways, moving on to Rachel's next venture into Hollywood, which came when she was cast to appear in DC's sequel to Shazam. Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods premiered on March 14, 2023, and was sadly, similar to Rachel's first film, also considered as a financial flop. And while I feel like hardly anyone saw the sequel, I'm willing to bet you guys saw the clip of Rachel saying she took the role because she quote-unquote needed a job.
Heroes, I needed a job. I'm being so serious.
Because that 6-second clip of her at the red carpet kinda went viral. Reactions to this clip were mixed, with some appreciating her honesty and the fact that a job is a job and we all need one, while others were disappointed that her main motivation for joining the DC Extended Universe seemed to be financial, rather than a genuine passion for the project. Except when you watch the full interview, she does explain that she was a fan of the first film and was excited she got the opportunity to play the role of Anthea, especially since the release of her first film, West Side Story, was being delayed by the pandemic.
The reality was we were in the middle of a pandemic and I was not working and I couldn't get a job for the life of me because West Side Story hadn't come out yet, and it was really hard to book work for me. So I was really excited when this came in my inbox. I loved the first movie, and the fact that they even wanted me to come in for a callback and then a chem read and then everything in between. I'm so lucky that I got this.
So yeah, I imagine the fact that she was offered the role to play a DC character was really exciting and definitely paid well. So much so that Rachel would have been a fool to not jump on, especially as an actress with literally one film to her name. Side note, I'm defending Rachel a lot here because I'm trying my hardest to be objective and whatnot, but even I will find her later controversies to be extremely messy and kinda deserving of backlash. Especially when keeping in mind how fortunate and privileged she has been so far, going from high school musical productions to being cast in a Steven Spielberg's production. Yes, Rachel can sing and she can act, but her rise to fame is very rare for actors who are just as, if not more talented than Zegler, and is something that needs to be kept in mind when addressing her future behavior. Now, despite these minor controversies and the public drama Rachel would often find herself in, and the fact that her first two movies were not financially successful, her career just kept on expanding, and at the age of 22 years old, Rachel would be cast in another major budget movie, with her landing the leading role of Lucy Gray in the prequel to The Hunger Games, an obviously massive franchise and a highly coveted role amongst Hollywood actresses. The 2023 sequel to The Hunger Games, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, would premiere in 2023 and would be considered once again as a financial disappointment, having performed much lower than its predecessors, the massively successful and popular Hunger Games series led by Jennifer Lawrence. But all in all, it wasn't all bad, as despite its failure to reach the peaks of the previous movies, this sequel did manage to make some money for the producers, especially when considering its lower budget of nearly $100 million. So while not exactly a blockbuster, Rachel's third film was at least, I guess, successful. Kind of. Now, I didn't watch every single movie Rachel has ever done for this video, since this deep dive isn't really critical of her acting. In fact, I'll be first to admit that her voice is amazing. You can just watch clips of her singing as Lucy Gray in The Hunger Games to get to the same conclusion as me, and it's definitely not a criticism of her acting skills. She's, in my opinion, a good actress. Now, she's not exactly Meryl Streep, but she's clearly capable of conveying a wide range of emotions on screen in a believable and an engaging way. So yeah, Rachel's success so far, in my opinion, is understandable. I can totally see why she got the roles she did so far. That being said, the next announcement of her next role does not make sense, in my opinion at least, although the majority of the internet does seem to agree with me. And it's this announcement that would start the wave of negativity that would ultimately tarnish Rachel Zegler's career in a way that I don't remember any other actor experiencing. From massive backlash and criticism, to comments of entitlement and a wave of YouTube videos all aimed at criticizing Zegler's behavior. And finally, a movie trailer that could possibly be the most disliked trailer of all time. And it all started in 2021 when Disney announced their choice to cast Rachel Zegler as Snow White in the live-action remake of the 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Part 2: A Disney Marketing Disaster. The live-action remake of Disney's Snow White is set to premiere in March 2025, featuring Gal Gadot as the evil queen and Rachel Zegler as the leading character of Snow White. And reception to this project has been interesting, to say the least. Now, Disney has been remaking its old hit animated movies for years now, with some being more successful than others. So the fact that they were remaking Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, one of their most popular properties ever, a movie that literally saved their studio back in 1937, with Walt Disney quite literally using all the company's money to produce this one film that, despite the industry's predictions of failure, would go on to be released to massive, and I mean massive, success, in the process establishing Disney as the giant animation empire we know today. So yeah, how hard is it to remake an already extremely successful movie that comes with an already massive built-in fan base? Well, it turns out in the case of Disney, it's actually pretty hard. In fact, this remake is pretty much doomed, so let's talk about why. The 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs has an impressive history. Not only is it the first feature-length animated film, it's also the first picture to be produced using both Technicolor and using traditional animation. Its stunning, colorful visuals, charming and imaginative characters, and its impressive animation style that is still somehow just as amazing nearly 87 years later all factors into the wide success it received, and successful it definitely was. Walt Disney's Snow White would receive critical and commercial success, with it grossing $8 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of 1938. Moreover, the film was nominated for an Academy Award in 1938, and it landed Walt Disney his own special Oscar, made up of a normal-sized Oscar plus 7 miniature tiny ones, which I mean, that says enough about the impact of the movie when it came out. It literally got its own special Oscar made. Over the decades, the popularity of Snow White would only grow larger, with Disney re-releasing it every few years and adding to its already impressive box office success. And it eventually found its home in the forms of DVDs and is now, of course, available on streaming services. And as mentioned earlier, the movie's beautiful scenes and magical environment allows it to maintain its charm even today, something which the live-action remake seems to really lack. But the seemingly lack of imagination and heavy emphasis on CGI isn't the movie's biggest problem. Its biggest problem is, of course, its leading star, Rachel Zegler. Rachel would find herself in a number of controversies before Disney could even manage to release a trailer for their upcoming film. Her first round of backlash came when a clip of her went viral while attending a rally for the 2023 SAG writers' strikes. In this clip, Rachel voices, or rather demands, to be paid for quote-unquote every hour the movie is streamed online.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
This clip, which had already been making its round on Twitter and TikTok, received even more attention when a popular anti-wokeness account retweeted it, while calling Rachel the most insufferable woman they have ever seen. This retweet gained over 40 million views and prompted Rachel to respond with her own set of tweets. Now, I personally do feel a little conflicted here. Obviously, it goes without saying, writers should be fairly compensated for their work, and in an industry that is heavily focused on profits, I can understand if they feel like their rights are not being met. But on the other hand, Rachel is not a writer. She's an actress that has had an extraordinary fast, and one could even say easy path to fame. I mean, objectively speaking, it's been way easier for her to get to where she is compared to the other millions of actors who might be just as talented or even more talented than her, and they don't get to be cast in a Disney movie after having literally 3 not very successful movies to their name.
I stand in solidarity with the WGA and obviously with SAG-AFTRA, which is my union. Pay your fucking writers, pay your fucking actors. I have residual checks that would shock you, and I've only made 2 movies, so I can't imagine how like Kimiko Glenn is faring and all of this, making like $27 on years and years and years of Orange is the New Black, which really put Netflix on the map. Look up ways you can help, because Below the Line is suffering. So are many, many actors, background actors, people who have not worked in many, many years. There's a huge percentage of SAG-AFTRA that isn't even eligible for health insurance. Think of them during this time, because an industry shutdown hurts us all. I love you all.
Furthermore, my issue with Rachel comes down to the way she speaks. She comes off as too aggressive, spoiled, and honestly just entitled. Like, I remember seeing her tweet after she was announced to be the new Snow White, and her reaction was, quote, "Yes, I am Snow White. No, I'm not bleaching my skin for the role," unquote. Which, like, yes, that's a fair take. Obviously, no one expects her to bleach her skin to play a fictional character. However, both Disney and Rachel did face a lot of criticism for choosing to completely reimagine the look of the original character. I'll cover the issue with casting her specifically to play Snow White and everyone's reaction to that later on. But this tweet honestly annoyed me so much, and I was so frustrated when I first saw it after the announcement has been made. Like, where's the excitement and humility for landing the role of a lifetime? Now, I'm no actress, but I would be jumping up and down if I was presented with such an amazing role. Instead of this harsh tweet, I honestly just expected a simple tweet of something like, "Thank you for choosing me, and I can't wait to bring this beloved character to life." Especially since this was, again, in my opinion, the role of a lifetime. But Rachel's attitude during the press tour to promote this movie was lacking any such sentiments.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years when I was doing this film. And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. The cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world. And so when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just.
Instead, she loudly and unapologetically first admitted to only seeing the movie once when she was a child, and then proceeded to call its story outdated, the romance aspect unnecessary, and labeled its prince character as a stalker, which, to quote Rachel's own words here, is just weird. Like, if you thought so little of the original film, its story, and its characters, so much so that you feel the need to fix it, then why even bother accepting the role at this point? Why not let someone else who's a fan of the character, or at the very least has seen the actual movie, get the role instead? These clips, as I'm sure most of you know by now, once again went viral, bringing a lot of negative attention to both Rachel Zegler and Disney. And it's not hard to understand why so much hate was pointed at her, as her entitlement and lack of self-awareness is very clear with her responses to the interviewer's questions, and as hundreds of YouTube videos and Twitter posts started calling out her obnoxious attitude towards the film, and more specifically her seemingly resentful attitude towards its characters, and her plan to quote-unquote fix it, Rachel started singing a different tune.
The cartoon's so beloved. It's like a monumental moment in film history.
Yeah.
There's like all of these amazing things that happened for that film are the reason that you and I really get to sit here today, because it made Disney what it is. There's just a very dedicated group of people who love Disney cartoons. I'm one of them. You know, I love everything that the Disney company has put out in the past a million years, 100 years this year.
But I never wanted to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. When I say that this has been the biggest adjustment of my life, like understanding the way my life operates now, being who I am, and the things that I've been so fortunate to make. It comes with so much ground that I never thought I would be able to cover, and that people think I'm doing poorly, and other people think I'm doing gracefully, and I don't think I'm doing it at all. So when I tell you that it's hard, I just mean to be inside my brain. That's hard. And I'm there 24/7. I can't get out of it. And I don't know if that will make sense, but that's where I'm at. I'm so grateful for the things that I'm able to do. And a lot of what I'm able to do is because of you guys. And I'm so unbelievably thankful for that.
Her change of attitude as the movie's release date inched closer and closer was deemed by many as being fake and too little too late. Interviews of her suddenly praising the movie and its story, as well as her complete change in attitude and tone, was definitely influenced by the panicking Disney executives, who at this point must have seen the writing on the wall. They were, in fact, making the most hated movie in recent years, and they were trying to save whatever good publicity they had left. The bad publicity Rachel Snow White's interviews garnered were only made worse when she shared her opinions about the upcoming election and its result. Now, in general, I really don't feel like supporting one politician over the other is in of itself a bad thing, but the way Rachel would go on to approach this already extremely divisive and delicate topic as a public figure was just horrible.
I don't think I've come up on this social media app to say that we have a really important presidential election coming up, and Lenny is very eager for you to vote for Kamala Harris. And it's actually non-negotiable. Our rights are on the line, folks. Our reproductive rights. Come on. Go vote blue. And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks.
In a video voicing her support for Kamala Harris, Rachel would go on to state that basically if you don't vote her way, well then she doesn't really need your support or your business. Which is, again, is just wild, especially since the viewer's business isn't just needed and is crucial for her career to advance, but the remake of Snow White and Disney's profit margins depends on the viewer's business. A simple concept that Rachel either fails to understand or is actively choosing to ignore, especially since her career has only managed to go up by the public clearly, and I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of people flat out hate her at this point. Which is fine if she's okay with being viewed that way, but it's a whole different story when your job relies on your public image, and your attitude and how you present yourself directly reflects on your projects, and most importantly, your employer's success. Now, Disney actively chose this when they hired Rachel for this role, despite already being aware of her previous controversies, so they have no one to blame here but themselves. And they need to deal with the consequences of their choice. But I don't know, I can't help but feel bad for them. Like, imagine hiring someone, paying them at least $1 million to star in your movie, only for them to alienate half, if not more, of paying customers away from said movie. And alienate is exactly what Rachel Zegler did when she went on to further the hole she has been digging for herself as well as Disney, when she came out with a set of Instagram posts in reaction to the election results. Now, I want to point out here that I am not American, nor do I live in the States, so I have no horse in this fight. But it's my humble opinion that one can state their support for one side over the other while still being respectful of the fact that not everyone is going to agree with you, and that's okay. Who people vote for is complicated and is driven by so many factors that you can't just simply ignore. The state they live in, their upbringing, their family views, and the economy they personally experience. Which is why I feel like getting judged by a 23-year-old millionaire whose job is to act and sing in movies about your choice to vote for whoever you want to vote for is extra obnoxious and completely out of touch with reality. I mean, honestly, even I was offended by her post, and I have no business being offended here. Quote, F Donald Trump, and may Trump supporters and Donald Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace, unquote. Now, as you can imagine, these statements lit the internet on fire, and Zegler would once again be trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. And in a pattern that is starting to become clear, influenced by either her PR team or Disney, she was forced to walk back her statements and apologize. Although this apology, which came in the form of an Instagram story post, did little to erase the horrible image most people had developed of her. Now, Rachel Zegler's public persona was already putting the live-action remake of Snow White in a horrible place, but Disney had a lot more to worry about. Part 3. The movie no one wants to see. As mentioned earlier, the remake of Snow White should be quite literally the easiest movie to promote. Its massive previous success and the fact that new generations have been brought up to see it and adore it would account for an almost guaranteed large amounts of money at the box office. And while that might be obvious to both you and me, evidently it's not so clear to the Disney executives, who at this point seem to be allergic to making money. Now, in making this script, I was curious as to who's the most popular princess around. If you ask me personally, it's obviously Cinderella, and as it turns out, most people seem to have the same opinion. As per Statistica.com, the most popular Disney princess in the US in 2023 was Cinderella, with Snow White coming in close second. If you ask BuzzFeed though, they would rank Snow White dead last as number 15 for being, quote, less interesting, and for spending half of the movie cleaning the house for 7 men she barely knows, unquote. And it's this exact thinking which has been so obviously adapted by Disney as a company that would ruin any chances they had of making money on their already profitable projects. So in my opinion, to blame Rachel Zegler for the inevitable failure of this remake, as the title and thumbnail of this video would suggest, would be unfair. While her remarks were louder and more off-putting than her previous fellow Disney princesses, what she was preaching was nothing new. Hailey Bailey, who played Ariel in the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, can be quoted saying in a Glamour magazine article, quote, "I'm really excited for my version of the film, because we've definitely changed that perspective of just her wanting to leave the ocean for a boy. It's way bigger than that. It's about herself, her purpose, her freedom, her life, and what she wants," unquote.
It was the first kind of feminist of the Disney princesses. She was kind of a departure from these young women who are waiting to be saved. Doesn't want to marry the hottest, cutest guy in the village. She wants to see the world. She wants to empower herself through learning and reading, and you needed to kind of like make her more authentic. And so My Belle wears riding boots, and like she's got mud on her, and she's got bloomers underneath her dress so she can throw her leg over a horse.
The push towards modernizing these classic Disney movies in theory is a good thing, but Hollywood often ends up radicalizing the very same films they try to modernize, and it's extremely clear when you look at the original characterization of Snow White, who was so lovingly deemed as too boring by BuzzFeed because she committed the ultimate crime of, I guess being too nice. Or maybe being a homemaker, not having a job in the 1930s? Because apparently in the modern age of today, being nice and wanting to help 7 characters who you thought were orphans is bad.
And just look at that room! Why, they've never swept this room. You'd think their mother would. Maybe they have no mother. Then they're orphans. That's too bad. I know. We'll clean the house and surprise them.
Moreover, being interested in being a homemaker and finding a life partner is, well, how do I say this? Boring. Which, no, if a woman wants to stay at home and raise kids, then that's just as valid as a choice as being career-driven. In fact, raising kids, in my opinion, is the more complicated and harder choice that should be looked at with nothing but respect. In Disney's effort to appeal to the girl boss era of today, they effectively judge the women who don't fit in that box, and they do it harshly by actively labeling their thinking as outdated and backwards, and deeming their life choices as boring. Which brings me to my point. What is exactly so wrong about leaving Snow White the way she is? Her character was written in an age where women were not a large part of the working industry, but rather were focused on the equally important job of raising future generations, something which a large majority of women still do, often while working a full-time job. Moreover, if Disney wanted to make movies for the modern women with values and beliefs that reflect the change in times, then well, why don't they? They have all the money in the world and the ability to produce films that reflect their obvious change of mind, instead of messing with movies that are already beloved and has formed a large portion of our childhood, despite being flawed as people might think. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that Rachel Zegler is not the problem, or at least she isn't the only problem. She's a young actress who seemingly overnight went from being an unknown high school student to a massive movie star, with all the exposure that comes with that status. She lacks media training and has been seduced by Hollywood into believing she is untouchable. And I feel like she is just now starting to see that this is, much like a lot of things in Hollywood, is just another lie. Rachel Zegler, despite her off-putting attitude and her constant smugness, is at the end of the day a reflection of the company that hired her. And when you think about it, it becomes very clear why they hired her. She embodies everything the company believes in. Obviously, as I said many times now, she can act and she can sing, two things which are needed for the role of Snow White. However, she looks nothing like the original character, who's literally named Snow White because her skin is as white as snow, and is referred to in the source material as the fairest of them all, as per Disney's original description. But in the new reimagining of the character, her name now comes from a story no one knew, where apparently she survived a snowstorm as an infant and was named after that traumatic event. Because yes, if my child was almost hit by a train, I would also call them Train. Quote, "It fell back to another version of Snow White that was told in history, where she survived a snowstorm that occurred when she was a baby, and so the king and queen decided to name her Snow White to remind her of her resilience. One of the core points in our film for any young woman or young person is remembering how strong they actually are," unquote. Now, I'm not prepared to say that all the hate Rachel received when she was announced for the role was out of love for the original character, and not based on some form of racism, as I'm sure a fair percentage of it was exactly that. But I also can't sit here and lie and say that I feel like the constant recasting of princesses and reimagining of their looks is exactly necessary. Not to the point where you almost have to invent a story to justify why a character named Snow White is even called that anymore. Especially when you could create new stories that platforms the new generation of actors, and in the process write stories that can represent everyone. Because as cliche as it sounds, representation does matter. It's just that Hollywood is doing it all wrong, in my opinion at least. It's gotten to the point where I can't help but feel like they are stuck in their billion-dollar echo chamber, refusing to listen to the very people they demand money from.
What you've done is just so stunning and soulful and authentic and genuine and real and like totally, you know, reinvigorating this classic thing in your own way, and I am absolutely just weirdly proud of someone that I've never met, and I'm so happy to be meeting you. So that's starting.
I'm so happy to be meeting you. I cannot even believe those words just came out of your face towards my face.
All of the elements I just covered resulted in Disney choosing to delay the release of the Snow White remake for 3 whole years, as principal photography for the film originally wrapped in March 2022, and more disturbingly, it was reported that the movie had gone through multiple reshoots, which you know is always a good sign and only shows how much faith the executives had in their new project. Reasons for the reshoots include Disney having to reshoot the movie in order to replace their original idea of quote-unquote magical creatures, played by a diverse cast, to CGI little people, which is more in line with the original animated movie. World of Real in 2024 reported on the ongoing reshoots by saying, quote, "Disney's original plan was to nix the iconic dwarfs for the original and replace them with characters rumored to be magical creatures, played by normal-sized actors. After much backlash, the company reversed this creative decision and decided to include CGI dwarfs into the film. Despite all that, dwarf actors who can barely find any work in Hollywood still lost potential acting gigs in this movie," unquote.
It's not right, because these are roles made for actors of my stature, roles that aren't ever really given. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me. These dwarf roles are for people of my stature. Right. And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right.
Similar reports were published by the Park Place. On their website, they cite a source who is allegedly close to the production of the movie, and who informed them that 3 rounds of reshoots have been done ahead of the scheduled release of the film in March 2025. The article confirms one reason for the reshoot was to include the CGI doors, while interestingly and allegedly, another reason being that the focus groups reacted so negatively to the new and I guess improved Snow White character that the producers had to go back and include flashbacks scenes and possibly new songs in an effort to make one of the most beloved Disney characters more tolerable, I guess. Despite Disney's effort to soften the criticism of their lead star by making her do staged interviews where her opinions magically changed completely, and the multiple rounds of reshoots which I imagine added millions and millions of dollars to a movie which probably already had a massive budget, reality would deliver a massive slap to the giant corporation when the trailer for the upcoming live-action Snow White hit YouTube. This nightmare of production would get absolutely ratioed, and the comments section would turn into an open letter of criticism for both Disney as well as Rachel. And it's hard to imagine this movie making any money at this point, to be honest. But on the bright side, I can't wait to see my favorite YouTubers roasted.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Part 3: Conclusion and Final Thoughts. The upcoming premiere of Snow White is going to be interesting. I have no doubt the film will be praised by the general media for its reimagining of an old and outdated story, while hundreds of YouTube videos such as this one will be made criticizing Disney and its product, which is of course just a repeat of the reaction Disney has already experienced with their previous attempts at modernizing their old films, a cycle that is set to repeat itself unless Disney, its executives, as well as its actors, start listening to what the audience actually want, which in my opinion can be summed up in 2 simple points. First, please leave our childhood alone and quit making zombified, dull movies that have nothing to do with the original magical movies we grew up watching. And second, make new movies with new stories and cast whoever you want in them. If the movie and its story is good, people will see it regardless of the race of its characters. And it's not like Disney isn't capable of making new stories. They obviously can, as the success of both Moana and Frozen shows. And it's actually really sad if you think about it. This live-action remake could have been what the original animated film was for so many of us, magical. But instead it's remade into a dull-looking, overly CGI'd version that cost an ungodly amount of money to make, only for it to crash and burn. Moreover, Hollywood as an industry needs to seriously rethink how they approach their audience. This age of talking down to people and preaching to them isn't really working. I mean, clearly, just ask Rachel Zegler and all the hate she's experiencing. And to label the frustration people feel as misogyny or worse, racism, isn't really fair. As I mentioned earlier, I can't deny that a percentage of the backlash Zegler has received is rooted in that. But it's not all that. Some people, myself included, simply don't like her, and it's because of her character, nothing more. And she is, at the end of the day, a small reflection of what Hollywood has become, which is ungrateful. What bothers me most about Rachel is that she fails to recognize that being an actor is a job. It's nothing more than a glorified job in the service industry, in my opinion. When you compare a waitress that makes minimum wage, who has to present an image of likability when dealing with customers, to actors who make millions and live in mansions because they make movies that people pay their hard-earned money to see, well then, the two aren't so different in concept. A waiter gets tips if they provide a good service and are polite, and actors get roles and money if they can act as well as if they can draw an audience in, basically putting butts in seats. Now of course, the waiter will go home with far less money than a working successful actor, which Rachel Zegler despite all odds is. And that only adds to the frustration of this whole situation, and highlights how disconnected Rachel is from the everyday man and woman. Instead of being grateful for the opportunities she's constantly being presented with, despite her poor attitude, she seems to expect more and more success success without really caring about how good of a service she is actually providing to the people that pay her money, the audience. In conclusion, I see no way the upcoming remake of Snow White will make any of its money back, let alone be successful. Of course, I could be wrong and hell could freeze over. I don't know, anything is possible, I guess. Thank you for watching.